Okay, here we are on the home stretch, the last lesson in the Pandas set of lessons, and we're going to be looking at renaming and combining. There's a few last functions that we'll cover, which are also quite useful and important for Pandas. The first one is renaming. Once again, we're going to use the same data frame of wine reviews. We'll go ahead and load that guy there. And let's just say that we want to change the name of the column of points to score. We can use a function called .rename to do that. If we do that, we can see that, yes, instead of points, now the name of this column is score. So this is really useful if you want to fine tune, if you load a raw file from some source, you want to fine tune the column names or even the indices, you can do that programmatically using Pandas. You can change the name of an index or column. So here you can see that renaming index, as long as you specify that it's the index, you specify what you want to change and what you want to replace it with, it also works that way. You can also change the name of the index itself. By default, within data frames, there is no set name. So if you look here in the upper left-hand corner of this data frame, there's nothing. But down here, we've actually made the name of the axis into wines and the name of the columns axis label into fields. So this is important in certain functions that require you to use those names. You'll in future lessons. Let's say you have two data frames that are pretty similar to each other and you want to put those two data frames together. And there are different functions which are very useful for that. One of them is the concat function, which we're going to see here in a second. Another one is the join function, and another is the merge function. Concat is the one that I use the most. You're basically taking two data frames which generally fit pretty okay together, meaning that they have a lot of overlap in terms of column names and or index row names or indices names. And you just want to smush them together. You want to put them on top of each other or next to each other. So concat is the best way to do that. So here you can see a chunk of code where you have new types of data sets, the Canadian YouTube dataset, British YouTube dataset. And these two data sets are examples of data that come from basically videos, YouTube videos. And pd.concat is basically going to put those two together. So you put both of the names of the data frames inside of a list, and that happens. So what you can see here is these are data about YouTube videos from both Canada and the UK, it seems. And you can see here that you put them together, you end up with 80,000 rows of data. If we go to the console and we want to find out what the Canadian data set looks like, let's say Canadian YouTube, we can see that it is 40,000 rows. And if we say British YouTube, it's 38,000 rows. The next type of function is the .join function. .join allows us to merge these two data sets, but have more parameters in doing that. Here's an example of where we want to merge the Canadian and British YouTube. And so we're basically setting the index for each of these to the title and the trending date, and using .join to join these two, where it's basically videos that happen to be trending on the same day in both Canada and the UK. So .join allows us to merge these two data sets based on so we're using the right attribute in this, which basically says that anytime a video showed up in both Canadian YouTube and British YouTube, to include it in the merging. So what happens here is that you can see that there's 40,000 rows here in 28 columns, as opposed to up here, there was almost 80,000 rows. So it's joining these two data sets only based on whether they have an overlap on the same day. We're going to see that in future lessons where we see more complex examples applied to data from the built environment. Finally, yes, you can do the exercise here to learn a little bit more about these different functions that we discovered in this lesson.